Hello, welcome to Unboxed God, where we detox from religion. And I was distracted there. Welcome to Unboxed God, where we detox from religion and discover the God who refuses to fit inside the boxes we were given. I'm Tolu Sarah Jensen, and here we explore who God really is, beyond fear, beyond formulas, and beyond everything we were taught to perform. If you're hungry for a real relationship with Him, you are in the right place. Let's dive in. So, this is going to be the chapter of a new book which I am currently writing or about to start writing, and the title is Reframe Your Suffering, Seeing Your Pain Through the Art of God. So, this is going to be the introduction. How this book was born is an interesting one. I arrived here after finishing a book, No One, The Measures God Endures to Love Humanity. Unfortunately, I did not record the chapters for that book. But if you're interested in knowing more about what is in the book, you could get that at Amazon, 99 cents. That book took me somewhere I did not expect to go. It pulled back a curtain I did not know existed. And it showed me a side of God that even though I'm coming to know, but I had never truly considered. Not His power, because we talk a lot about God's power, not His majesty, not His authority, but His daily unending suffering. His second by seconds unending suffering. I just want you to imagine that your leg was cut, and that pain is constant. You experience from that time onwards. People that had accident, that had their leg amputated, they can tell you of the pain. And it's a consistent, continuous pain. God goes through continuous pain. There's no remedy for it. Until Jesus comes, there is no remedy. So when you start looking at this Father that endures this level of suffering on a day-by-day basis, you start to see Him not as a distant God, but you see Him as a present one, a living one that suffers with you in your daily life. A Father who does not sit in heaven untouched by what happens on earth, but one who feels every rejection, every loss, every wandering heart. A God whose love is so deep that He exposes Him to a level of grief no created being has ever known. And something shifted in me. Because once you begin to see the weight God carries every single day, you can never see your own pain the same way again. And I just began to realize that heaven is not a place where God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit lounge in comfort while humanity struggles below. There's a sorrow there that few understand, that many understand, not few. Majority of God's children do not think God is angry. They do not think God is extremely sad. Actually, let me rephrase that. Majority of God's children does not know that He experiences a deep level of sorrow every day. that he has to endure. They don't teach you about that. Have you heard of that in church? Where they preach about God that suffers, that is depressed? Jesus that is depressed? No. But when you sit under the feet of God, at the feet of God rather, when you sit at the feet of the saints, which I've been speaking to from heaven for this past 2.5 years, your understanding of God shifts drastically. I began to realize that heaven is not a place where God, Jesus, and Holy Spirit is lounging. And that was jarring for me. I remember when Papa said to me, for a long time, he and Jesus will often withdraw and weep profusely. They were hiding it because they didn't want people in heaven to be impacted by their deep sadness. But now they know in heaven, they know the state that God is, even though some have still chosen to look from afar. They're not willing to step into the sorrow of God. They are not willing to do things that will relieve his pain, his suffering. Human beings are naturally selfish. They just only care about themselves. That's all they care about. How will you see a God that suffers, that keeps coming out almost every other day in heaven? I am in pain. And you still see children of God that are not moved. They're not moved by his pain because they are enjoying. And that is what the church has become. The church is not moved by the pain of God. The church is only moved by their own selfishness, the desire to be prosperous, the desire to kill your enemy, the desire to have everything that you want. And you know it. That's the only reason why you serve God. You serve God so that your needs can be met. You go to church so that you can go to heaven. That's it. You don't serve him because you love him so deeply that you want to surrender and give your all to him. It's a high level of deception. And I remember when Papa said it to me. He wept. I can never forget. And I've seen him weep several times. Imagine your creator in tears. Imagine the one who made you carrying a sadness so heavy that those close to him feel its weight. My husband Ben has witnessed it so many times. Others close to him have seen it. Many in heaven knows this side of God. Many in heaven, I won't say many in heaven knows this side of God. Many in heaven do not know this side of God. They are coming to know, but they might have seen that God weeps, but the depth of it is only few that are close to him. And many on earth will not even consider that he suffers. And it stuns me, our level of ignorance. How we are oblivious to the pain that God goes through. How we've become extremely self-centered. And a lot of people often think of friendship with God as comfort because that's what the prosperity gospel tells us. When you are close to him, you experience success. When you are close to him, your enemy flees. That's what they've sold to you. I remember a pastor saying, I can never be a friend of a poor. But God said there will always be poor in the land. Matthew Robert Payne, who is extremely close to God in heaven, is poor on earth. Jesus was poor on earth. He was born in a demeaning state, born in a manger. What kind of welcome is that? He did not walk into this world in a grand gesture. He walked here in pain. I saw a pastor recently who so many people who are close to him came out to say he's been sleeping with them. So out of pressure from people, himself and his wife went away for a month. They said they're going to rest. But they came back. The church laid the red carpet for them. This is the same man of God that has abused so many women, so many children. And what did the church do? They lay red carpet. So that is the church that you think knows God's heart. A lot of things that I know now, I can never know 1% of it in the church. So, for you who read my books and wonder, she must be so deceived. Just leave me in my deception. Leave me, and you can stay in your own obnoxious knowledge. Your pride, you're not willing to open your heart. Atheists are so wiser than Christians. Why will atheists say, I reject your God? They are rejecting the God that is actually not the real God. The God that you serve today is not the real God. It's the counterfeit God. The real God is loving. The real God is kind. The real God shares in your suffering. But they teach you about the God that once you pay your tithe, He will bless you multiple folds. And the church live in that blindness. They live in that deception. And all they live for is to be prosperous, to be a man of importance. Was Jesus a man of importance when He came? Nope. Walking with the disciple on His feet everywhere to preach the gospel. So who has bewitched you, oh Christians? Just like what Paul said, who has bewitched you? And your eyes cannot be open. And everything is my pastor say, my pastor say, when are you going to take responsibility of your future? Because serving God will cost you everything. I say it will cost you everything. It cost me what was most precious to me, and God knew it, my husband. For me to sit down here and be doing it now, doing this, it took the most important thing that He knows can stand in the way of God's calling for my life. And my husband is in heaven fulfilled. I am here fulfilled. We are walking side by side. I could have sit in my own sadness, but I knew I had to stand up and be responsible. Because friendship with God is not just comfort. Actually, majority of the time, it's carrying His grief. So what if part of that friendship is sharing in His sorrow? Will you? What if loving humanity costs Him more than we have ever dared to imagine? And that is what I'm coming to understand now. I'm waking up from my slumber. So, what father will be untouched, watching his children hurt themselves? For so long, I just wanted to make him happy, serve him, make him happy. And King Solomon woke me up from that. Said, Tolu, you have to stop being selfish. You are not there to make him happy. You are there to meet him in his sadness. Because what father will be happy when his children are hurting every day? They walk away from him. They misunderstand him over and over again. What father could remain cheerful in the face of that? So you might be thinking, why is God suffering? He's suffering because you are suffering. He's suffering sometimes because of your foolishness, your stupidity. And slowly, gently, something began to dawn on me. If God carries the weight of billions of hearts every single day, if His love exposes Him to a level of emotional pain I will never have to bear, Give me a minute.
Recording in progress.
Sorry for that interruption. So, if that suffering cost him that, perhaps it's time for me to start seeing God. And I understand his pain now. Because if God carries the weight of billions of hearts every single day, if his love exposes him to a level of emotional pain I will never have to bear, then perhaps I've been looking at my own suffering through the wrong lens.
Recording in progress.
Because I know what it is to worry about my children, and I know how heavy it is to feel when even one of them is not okay. So God carries that multiplied beyond comprehension. And that was the moment my heart began to open, and a quiet whisper formed within me told you need to reframe your suffering. Because what feels enormous when you are looking only at yourself begins to change shape when you begin to see it through the heart of God. And that question that so often rises from pain, why me started to lose its voice. Yes, me began to disappear. Me went into the background. Because God has been gently eroding that mindset in me, peeling away the instinct to center everything around my own pain. And that deliverance did not happen overnight. It began years ago when Matthew's mom, I would say, when I mean years, let's say 1.5 years ago, just to be specific, Matthew's mom, which my co-author said, Tolu, there is beauty in suffering. I can never forget. I started seeing my suffering differently. I even wrote a book from that revelation. And from that point, I started to see suffering differently. But the more I spoke to God, the deeper I go. Even though I was seeing suffering differently, I still could not understand why God had to go through the level of suffering it goes. Because I'm thinking you can put an end to it. You've got power. But of course, there's so many things that you believe about God that is not actually true. Yes, it's all powerful, but it still has to submit to Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is the boss. You can say, Tolu, you're speaking heresy. Well, you will know if you can ask God and you could hear God yourself, you will hear him confirm that. But whether you know that Holy Spirit is the boss or not, God has to wait for the timing, the right timing for Jesus to come back. So he cannot just automatically stop his suffering. And I've asked him before, why don't you just kill the ones that are evil? And he said, do you know, Tolu, if I did that, I would kill a lot of my children. Isn't that sad? But God has to respect your free will. So if you want to know more about that book, there's beauty in suffering. I wrote a whole book from that revelation that I had. And from that point, suffering became something different. But I am still growing, because now, after working further with God, after seeing more of his heart, after understanding how deeply he feels the weight of humanity, there are times I honestly forgot about my own suffering altogether. And to be candid, to a larger extent, I've forgotten about my own suffering. Not because it disappears, but because it shrinks in the light of something far greater. So, we were never taught that suffering is part of the journey. Yes, I have asked my husband before, what makes you so sad in heaven? And his answer stayed with me. He said, carrying the pain of God and supporting him in it, experiencing it, seeing the state of God, seeing the sadness on his face. To the extent that it comes after, is far ahead of his own personal pain or challenges that he might be experiencing. And when you ask me as well, the suffering of God has eclipsed my own. I live fully for Him now. All I think is about how I can ease His pain a little bit, how I can sit with Him in His pain, how I can express His heart to His children. Because the church is not expressing His heart, they're not telling you the truth. They are lying. Well, I wouldn't even use the word they are lying. Some of them might be lying, but a lot of them are shallow. They don't know God. So, and every time I hear this pain that God goes through, it still jars me, because we were never taught this. The church did not teach you this. Society did not teach you this. They taught you are the center of the story. They taught you that suffering is the loudest voice in the room. So you magnify it, you rehearse it, you live from it. Now, I'm not saying you should not feel compassion for what you go through. I'm not saying your pain is not real. I'm saying do not make it what you live for. Even without thinking about God's suffering, there's so many people that are still living on this earth that experience deeper suffering than you do. I watch people that live on $5 a day. I watch people that do back-breaking jobs, and they still smile. So there's always someone that is way worse than you. So start refusing to make that pain your identity. Everyone that sees you must know, oh, what a sad widow. Oh, what an unemployed Tolu. No. You have to think outside of yourself. You have to embrace the purpose of God for your life. So, I have seen people with no legs, people with severe limitations, people whose lives are filled with visible hardship, and yet they live with gratitude. They still show up for life. They still smile. They still hope. They do not deny their pain. They simply refuse to make it their identity. And Papa said something to me recently that struck me deeply. You are not here to chase happiness. You are here to fulfill purpose. So are you there just chasing happiness from one pole to another? You are in every party. You are in every occasion. You don't have time for God. All you care about is just trying to make yourself happy. My question is, have you been able to successfully achieve that? Because you will never achieve that. Because there's nothing like happiness 100% all the time. We all carry pain, but you can continue to numb the pain with activities, with things that you think you do that makes you happy. Forget about happiness. It's good to be happy, but don't let it be what you live for. Pain will come whether you are rich or poor. Pain will visit every life in different forms and measures. No one escapes it. The question is not if pain will come. The question is, will you reframe it, or will you attach yourself to it? Will you continue to carry the weight yourself when the invitation has always been, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest? Will you seek its rest, or will you keep making your life about burden? Because when pain becomes the center of your life, it steals your purpose. It steals your joy. It convinces you that your story is over it confuses you that your story is over before it has even unfolded. Look, my story began to unfold after I became a widow. I stepped into the purpose of God for my life after I became a widow. You imagine if I've just made this state of my life all about myself, and all I think about every day is my pain, my suffering, I would not be here. I would not be doing this. And imagine how many lives that God sent me to that will have held back. Each time you're sitting on your pain, you are holding so many people back. Because what about if your pain was to teach other people, was to open doors for other people? So stop thinking just about yourself. And I want this book to interrupt that. Look at pain through God's resilience. Suffering is a universal human experience. There will always be someone carrying more than you. And even if you can't see them, there is God still carrying the weight of humanity every single day, yet still showing up with resilience. I remember asking C.S. Lewis what he admired most about God's character. He said his resilience, that he has not given up. Because if anyone had a reason to give up, it will be God of heaven and earth, watching his children hurt themselves, misunderstand him, and walk away from him again and again, and yet he remains. So what this book is inviting you to, what this book is inviting you to see, and this is where this book is inviting you to look not at your pain in isolation, but at your pain through the heart of a God who endures more than you can imagine and still chooses love. My prayer is that as you read these pages, something begins to shift inside you, that you start to see your suffering differently, that you begin to live not from the weight of what you carry, but from the purpose you were created to fulfill. God bless you.